Manager mocks black woman during service, without imagining who she really is. Angela Thompson adjusted her black blazer and took a deep breath before entering the bank. For 3 days, she had been trying to resolve an urgent situation, but with each attempt, she was met with looks of contempt and empty excuses from the employees. This time would be different. She had asked to speak directly with the manager, and she wouldn't leave without an answer. "Good morning. I need to speak with Mr. David Sterling," she said to the receptionist. "The manager is busy," replied the woman without even looking up from her computer. "I called yesterday and scheduled an appointment." The receptionist sighed and made an internal call. A few minutes later, a man of about 50 appeared, his suit wrinkled and an irritated expression on his face. "You've been bothering my team for days," said David Sterling, looking Angela up and down. "I've already explained we don't have time for this type of service. Sir, I just need 5 minutes to explain the situation." "Situation?" He laughed loudly, causing a few customers to turn their heads. "Let me guess. Another sob story to try and bypass procedures?" Angela felt her blood boil, but she maintained her composure. During her years working as a nurse, she had learned to deal with all kinds of people, including the most unpleasant ones. "It's about Mrs. Eleanor Sterling's account," she said, taking a folder from her pocket. The manager laughed even louder. "What an interesting coincidence. Did you think using a name similar to mine would impress me?" "Sir, this is a legitimate medical power of attorney. Mrs. Eleanor has been admitted to St. Jude's General Hospital for 3 weeks, and you are what to her? A relative?" he interrupted, making exaggerated gestures. "Because from what I see here, it doesn't quite add up, does it?" Angela clenched her fists. Around them, other customers began to pay attention to the conversation, and she could feel the uncomfortable stares from the employees. "I'm a nurse at the hospital. Mrs. Eleanor asked for my help because she needs to resolve an urgent issue with her account." "Nurse?" he repeated as if the word had a bitter taste. "And you probably studied at one of those diploma mills, right? Because a real nurse wouldn't be dressed like that." An elderly lady waiting in line stood up indignantly. "What is this nonsense? The young lady is well dressed and polite." "Ma'am, stay out of this," David replied sharply. "I'm dealing with a scam attempt." "Scam?" Angela finally raised her voice. "You haven't even looked at the documentation." "I don't need to look. I can recognize these stories from a mile away. Hospital, relative admitted, medical power of attorney." He made air quotes. "It's always the same sob story." The receptionist timidly approached and whispered something in a colleague's ear, who immediately paled. "Mr. David," the colleague called softly. "Can I speak with you for a moment?" "Not now, Jessica. I'm handling this." Angela opened the folder and placed the documents on the counter. Mrs. Eleanor Sterling, 78 years old, admitted to room 314 at St. Jude's General Hospital. She needs to access her special account because her health insurance isn't covering all the medications. David let out a guffaw. "Special account? A woman of that age? You really think I'll believe a little old lady has money for our premium products? Please, just look at the documents. I'm not wasting my time on forged paperwork." The tension in the room was palpable. Other customers whispered among themselves, some shaking their heads in disapproval of the manager's attitude. "Mrs. Eleanor talks constantly about a son," said Angela, changing her strategy. "She says he works at a bank and that she is very proud of him." David paused for a second, but soon returned to his mocking smile. "How convenient. And let me guess, this imaginary son works right here, doesn't he?" She shows a photo she carries in her wallet. A middle-aged man, always in a suit. "Enough," he slammed his hand on the counter. "This has gone way too far. I'm calling security." "David," the employee Jessica insisted, stepping closer. "Please, I need to speak with you urgently." "Jessica, I already told you that it's about your mother." The words echoed through the space like a gunshot. David froze, and Angela felt her heart race. "My mother," he repeated, his voice suddenly quieter. "The woman at St. Jude's General Hospital, Eleanor Sterling, your mother." The silence that followed was deafening. David looked at Angela as if seeing her for the first time, then at the documents on the counter, then back at her. "Impossible," he whispered. Angela took the wallet from her pocket and pulled out a small photo worn by time. She carries this photo always, says it's of her dear son who works at a bank. David looked at the photo and staggered back. It was the same photo that was on his office desk, taken 5 years ago at a graduation. How did you get this photo? I've been taking care of your mother for 3 weeks, said Angela, her voice choked. She talks about you all the time, about her successful, smart son whom she loves more than anything in life. But I talk to her every week on the phone. She never said she was in the hospital, because she didn't want you to know. She said you already worked too much, that she didn't want to be a burden. David sat down heavily in a nearby chair, his face in his hands. 3 weeks? For 3 weeks? She was admitted with pneumonia. She's getting better, but the treatment is expensive, and the health insurance doesn't cover everything. That's why she needs to access the savings account. Why didn't she tell me? Why didn't she ask for help? Angela sat down beside him, forgetting all the previous humiliation. Because she's proud, because she loves you and doesn't want you to worry. She said she raised you alone after your father left, and she wasn't going to start being a bother now. My God, he murmured, and I treated you like that. The person who's taking care of my mother. She talks about you every night. When the pain is too strong, she looks at this photo and says she needs to stay strong to see her son one more time. Tears began to roll down David's face. The employees around them approached, concerned about the situation. How is she? Tell me the truth. She's responding well to the treatment, but she refuses to use the money from the savings account. Says it's for you, for your future. That's why she suffers in silence, trying to pay with her Social Security. What kind of son am I? He sobbed. What kind of man treats the person who's saving my mother like this? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, Angela put her hand on his shoulder. Your mother always says you are a good man, that you have a generous heart. She tells stories from your childhood about how you always helped the neighbors. I used to be like that, he said, wiping his eyes. When I was a kid, I really did help everyone. But the work, the pressure, the results, I became this. It's never too late to go back to being who you really are. David stood up and addressed the employees who were watching. Jessica, you tried to warn me, didn't you? The employee nodded, embarrassed. Since the first time she came. I recognized the name Eleanor Sterling in the records and tried to tell you, but I didn't want to listen. I thought I knew everything, that I was smarter than all of you. He turned to Angela. Forgive me. Please forgive me. I have no excuse for what I did. Your mother doesn't need to know how you received me, said Angela gently. She just needs to know that the son she loves so much has solved her problems. No, David shook his head. She does need to know. She needs to know that I almost made a terrible mistake and that you saved me from myself. He called all the employees and clients present. I want everyone to hear. This woman, he pointed to Angela, is a nurse who is caring for my hospitalized mother, and I, instead of thanking her, treated her despicably out of pure prejudice. A murmur of discomfort went through the room. Angela, I beg your forgiveness. And I beg you to let me accompany you to the hospital right now to see my mother and ask for her forgiveness too. First, let's resolve her bill situation, said Angela with a sad smile. That's what I came for. The next few minutes were a rush. David opened all the systems, processed all the documents and granted full access to Eleanor's account. He discovered she had enough savings to pay not only for the treatment, but much more. She was always frugal, he said, looking at the statements. Even when I was a child and we had almost nothing, she always saved a little. She told me she worked as a seamstress and that sometimes she would sew until dawn to pay for her studies. It's true. She wanted me to have the life she never had. The drive to the hospital was made in silence. David drove with trembling hands while Angela explained the details of Eleanor's health condition. She has some moments of confusion because of the medications, but most of the time she is lucid and talking normally. What am I going to say to her? The truth, that you love her, and that you will take care of everything from now on." When they arrived at the hospital, Angela led David through the familiar hallways. Other nurses and doctors greeted her warmly, showing the respect she had among her colleagues. "Angela is an angel," said an older nurse. "She works 3 shifts, but always has time to talk with the patients." "3 shifts?" David asked, surprised. "I need to support my family," Angela explained simply. "I have 2 daughters in college." David felt another wave of shame upon realizing he had judged someone who worked much harder than he did. They stopped in front of room 314. Through the glass door, David could see a fragile lady lying in bed, looking out the window. "Shall we go in?" Angela asked softly. David took a deep breath and nodded. "Hi, Mrs. "Helena," said Angela, entering the room. "I brought a surprise for you." The elderly woman turned her head, and when she saw her son standing in the doorway, her eyes filled with tears. "David, my son?" He approached the bed and held her hand, which was cold and trembling. "Mum, why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want to worry you, my love. You work so hard." "That doesn't matter, Mum. Nothing is more important than you." Eleanor looked at Angela with a grateful smile. "She is an angel, David. Angela takes care of me as if I were her family." "I know, Mom, and I treated her very poorly today." "What do you mean?" David told the whole story, omitting no detail of how he had behaved. Eleanor was shocked and embarrassed. "My son, I didn't raise you like that." "I know, Mom. I lost my way. But Angela brought me back." Angela discreetly left the room to give the family privacy, but kept watching through the glass window. Other hospital staff approached, curious about the situation. "Is that Mrs. Eleanor's son?" asked a doctor. "Yes, we finally managed to contact him." Angela tried several times to resolve the situation at the bank, but she always came back sad and frustrated. When David left the room an hour later, his eyes were red, but his face showed a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. "Angela, I don't know how to thank you. By taking care of your mother. That's all she wants. And you? What can I do for you?" "Nothing. Caring for patients is my calling. Your mother holds a special place in my heart because she reminds me of my grandmother. At least let me pay for your studies or your daughters." "You don't need to. We're managing. I just want you to be happy and to treat people with more kindness. The world already has too much suffering." David returned to the bank with a completely different perspective. He gathered all the employees and told them what had happened. "I want to change the way we serve our clients, especially those who might not seem to fit the profile we expect." Jessica raised her hand. "David, can I speak? Angela came here several times in the last few weeks. I tried to tell you, but you were always too busy to listen." "And have other people been through the same situation?" "Many. Sometimes people come here desperate, needing to solve urgent problems, and we treat them as if they were an inconvenience." David became thoughtful. "From today, I want every client to be treated with the same respect, regardless of appearance or situation. And if someone says they have an emergency, I want you to call me immediately." In the following days, the story spread through the hospital. Angela became even more beloved among patients and staff, who admired her capacity to forgive and her dedication to her work. Eleanor recovered quickly, not just physically, but emotionally. Having her son nearby and knowing her financial situation was resolved brought a noticeable improvement in her condition. "Angela, you saved our family," Eleanor said on a sunny morning. "You not only brought my son back, but you made him remember who he really is. Mrs. Eleanor, your son was always a good person. He was just lost. And you found him." David began to visit his mother every day, reorganizing his schedule to have more time with her. He discovered he had lost precious years distancing himself from his family because of work. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out. Now continuing. 1 month after Eleanor's discharge, David looked for Angela at the hospital. "I want to make a proposal to you." "What would it be?" "I want you to come work at the bank. You would be responsible for a new program I'm creating, personalized care for clients in vulnerable situations. Angela smiled gently. Thank you for the offer, but my place is here, caring for patients. But you would earn much more, have better conditions. David, money isn't everything in life. I am happy doing what I do. Every patient who improves, every family that reunites, is worth more than any salary. David nodded, admiring her determination even more. Then at least let me create this program and have you as a consultant. You could train our employees on empathy and personalized care. That I can do in my spare time. The program was launched 3 months later and became a model for other branches. David implemented specific protocols to identify clients in emergency situations and establish partnerships with hospitals and nursing homes to facilitate bureaucratic procedures. Eleanor became one of the program's biggest enthusiasts, regularly visiting the bank to tell her story and raise awareness, among others, about the importance of not judging by appearance. My son was a good person who got lost, she would tell new employees, but Angela brought him back, and now you can do the same for other families. The transformation of David was profound. He began to get involved in social projects, established a fund to help families of patients facing financial difficulties, and completely changed his way of leading the team. What happened to me was a gift, he said in a meeting 6 months later. Angela showed me that professional success is worthless if you lose your humanity in the process. Angela continued working all 3 shifts, but now with even more motivation. Her story and Eleanor's had spread throughout the hospital, inspiring other professionals to have more patience and dedication with patients. One day, while Angela was finishing the night shift, she received an unexpected call. Angela, it's Jessica from the bank. Sorry to call so late, but it's an emergency. What happened? A desperate woman came in here. Her grandson is hospitalized, and she needs to access a blocked account to pay for the treatment. David isn't here, but I remembered what you taught about medical emergencies. And were you able to help her? Yes, but she was so grateful she started to cry. She said it had been years since she was treated with such respect in a bank. I wanted you to know that the training worked. Angela smiled, feeling her heart warm. Every person you treat well is a victory for all of us. Life went on with a new routine for everyone involved. David and Eleanor developed a closer relationship with long conversations about the past and plans for the future. He discovered childhood stories he had forgotten and better understood the sacrifices his mother had made for him. You know, Angela, said Eleanor one Sunday afternoon, when everyone was gathered at her house for the lunch that had become a tradition, I used to pray every night that my son would find a good woman who would make him happy. I never imagined it would be a nurse who was taking care of me. Mrs. Eleanor, Angela laughed, I'm not the woman in David's life. I just helped him find his way home. But you are family now, to me and to him. David confirmed with a nod. You saved our family, Angela, not just physically but emotionally. You taught us that true love manifests in care, patience, and forgiveness. Angela's daughters also became regular visitors at Eleanor's house, who treated them like granddaughters. The oldest, Brianna, was finishing medical school, and the youngest, Madison, was studying psychology. You have an extraordinary mother, Eleanor always told the girls. She has a special gift for healing broken hearts. We know, Brianna would reply. We grew up watching her take care of everyone. Sometimes she would come home after 3 shifts in a row and still have energy to help us with our homework. The bank program continued to grow. Other institutions began to seek out David to learn about humanized service, and he always made sure to credit Angela for the initial inspiration. What I learned, he said in a lecture to other managers, is that behind every person who walks into a bank branch, there is a story, a worry, a dream, an urgent need. Our role is not to judge, but to help. He always showed the photo of Eleanor and Angela together at the hospital on the day of discharge. This is my mother and the nurse who saved our family. When I look at this photo, I remember that every client I serve could be the most important person in someone's life. 1 year after the first meeting at the bank, David organized a surprise party for Angela. He gathered patients she had cared for, hospital staff, bank colleagues, and her own daughters. "This party is to thank someone very special," he said, with Eleanor by his side. "Angela Thompson, the woman who taught me that being professionally successful means nothing if you don't know how to be human." Angela was moved to see how many people had been touched by her work. Patients she had cared for months earlier showed up with their families to thank her. Bank employees shared stories of clients who had been well served thanks to the new program. "I always believed that small acts of kindness can change the world," said Angela, with tears in her eyes. "But you have shown me that sometimes these small gestures become great transformations." The party ended with Mrs. Eleanor making a special toast. "To Angela, who brought my son back to me. To the family we choose, which is as important as the family we are born into. And to love, which always finds a way to heal us." 2 years later, the bank's humanized customer service program had expanded to 50 branches. David was promoted to regional director, but he never forgot the lessons he had learned. Eleanor, at 80 years old, was more active than ever, participating in support groups for families of hospitalized patients. Her story of overcoming and reconciliation inspired other families in similar situations. "Age has taught me that time is the most precious asset we have," she would say in the groups, "and wasting time with prejudice and judgment is the greatest tragedy there is." Angela continued working as a nurse, but now also gave lectures in business administration and human resources courses about the importance of empathy in customer service. "My story with David and Mrs. Eleanor taught me that we all have prejudices," she explained to the students. "The difference lies in being willing to recognize them and change them when necessary." Brianna, Angela's eldest daughter, graduated from medical school and decided to specialize in geriatrics, inspired by the care her mother dedicated to the elderly. "I want to treat my elderly patients with the same affection you treated Mrs. Eleanor with," she told her mother on graduation day. Madison, the youngest, chose the field of hospital psychology, also following her mother's example of caring for people in vulnerable moments. "Our family always knew that caring for people is our calling," she said. "Now we want to continue that legacy." David married 2 years later to a psychologist he met during one of the lectures on humanized service. Catherine was a sensitive and dedicated woman who fell in love not only with him, but with the story of transformation he represented. "When David told me about Angela and Mrs. Eleanor, I knew I was meeting a special man," she said at the wedding. "Not everyone has the courage to admit their mistakes and completely change their life." Eleanor was radiant about her daughter-in-law, who treated her with genuine affection and respect. "Finally, my son has found someone who understands that family is about taking care of each other," she commented to Angela at the wedding reception. The bank continued to prosper, but now with a completely different philosophy. Employee turnover decreased drastically, customer satisfaction increased significantly, and the institution came to be seen as a benchmark in social responsibility. "What we discovered," David explained in interviews, "is that when you treat people with dignity and respect, everyone wins. Customers become more satisfied, employees feel more valued, and financial results appear naturally." 5 years after their first meeting, Angela received an honor from the City Hall for her services to the community. At the ceremony, not only her family was present, but also David, Eleanor, Catherine, and dozens of people whose lives had been touched by her work. "This honor is not just mine," she said in her acceptance speech. "It belongs to everyone who believes that kindness can transform the world. It belongs to Mrs. Eleanor, who taught me about forgiveness. It belongs to David, who showed that it's never too late to change. It's from every patient who trusted me in their most difficult moments." Eleanor, now 83 but still lucid and active, was called to the stage to speak. "When I was admitted to that hospital, I thought my life was ending," she said with a firm voice. "I never imagined I was beginning the best phase of my existence. Angela not only cared for my body, but she healed my soul and my son's." The humanized care program had become so successful that other companies began seeking David out for consulting. He always insisted that Angela participate as a co-facilitator in the trainings. "It's no use creating protocols and procedures if there isn't a genuine change in people's hearts," he would say. And that only happens when you understand that every client is someone special to another person. During one of these consulting sessions, they met Dorothy Higgins, a 60-year-old woman who had been through a similar situation in a department store. She had been humiliated by employees who doubted her financial capability, only for them to discover later that she owned a successful small textile business. "You can't imagine how painful it is to be judged by your appearance," she shared during the training. "I've worked since I was 12, built my company from the ground up, but because I'm black and come from a humble background, some people think I don't deserve respect." Her story moved the participants and reinforced the importance of the work they were developing. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Over the years, the partnership between David and Angela transformed into a deep friendship. Together, they developed a training method that was used in various companies, always focused on humanizing relationships. "What impresses me about Angela," David said in an interview for a business magazine, "is that she never held a grudge for what I did. She could have sued me, could have created a scandal, but she chose to forgive me and help me grow." "Forgiveness isn't for the one who made the mistake," Angela would often respond. "It's for the one who forgives. Holding on to resentment only hurts the one holding it." Eleanor became a sort of adoptive grandmother to Angela's daughters. Brianna and Madison visited her regularly, and she accompanied them during important moments in their professional lives. "You two remind me of how I wanted my life to be when I was young," she would tell the girls. "To study, to have a profession, to make a difference in the world. You are fulfilling my youthful dreams." Brianna, already graduated and working as a geriatrician, considered Eleanor one of her favorite patients, not officially, but she was always attentive to her health and well-being. "Taking care of Mrs. Eleanor is a pleasure," she would say. "She has more energy than people 30 years younger." Madison, freshly graduated in psychology, began working at the same hospital where her mother was a nurse, specializing in psychological support for patients' families. "I grew up hearing Mom's stories about how important it is to care, not just for the patient, but for the whole family," she explained to her colleagues. "Someone's hospitalization affects the entire family structure." Madison's work perfectly complemented her mother's. While Angela cared for the patient's physical aspects, Madison helped with the family's emotional issues. "It's beautiful to see mother and daughter working together to care for people," Eleanor commented during a visit to the hospital. "You two are a gift to this world." David and Catherine had a son, Zachary, who grew up hearing his grandmother Eleanor's stories about the importance of kindness and respect for others. "Grandma, tell me the story about Aunt Angela again," the boy would always ask when he visited her. Eleanor never tired of telling how a nurse had saved her family, and she always ended with the same lesson. "Always remember, my little grandson, never judge people by their appearance. You might be missing the chance to meet an angel." Zachary, even as a small boy, already showed signs of the kindness that had become a family trait. When he visited the hospital with his grandmother, he always respectfully greeted all the staff, regardless of their role. "This boy is going to be special," Angela commented to Eleanor. "He's learning early that all people deserve respect." The bank where David worked became a national benchmark for compassionate service. Employees from other institutions came to intern and learn the methods developed by his team. "What makes me proudest," David said at an awards ceremony, "isn't the numbers or the profits, but the thank you letters we receive from customers who felt respected and welcomed." One such letter was from a 70-year-old man who had been given no hope by doctors and needed to access his savings to pay for an experimental treatment abroad. "I was desperate and hopeless," he wrote. "When I arrived at the bank, I thought it would be just another place where I'd be treated as a burden. But the staff welcomed me with kindness, helped me with all the paperwork, and even gave me strength to keep fighting. The treatment worked, and today I am cured. Thank you for treating me like a human being when I needed it most." Stories like this arrived regularly, showing that the implemented change was truly making a difference in people's lives. Angela, despite all the recognition she received for her work, remained humble and focused on what truly mattered to her: caring for patients. "Awards and honors are nice," she would say, "but what motivates me to get up every day is knowing I can be the difference between someone feeling abandoned or welcomed in life's most difficult moments. Her routine remained intense, but with some adjustments. The hospital administration, recognizing her value, had created a special position for her, supervisor of compassionate care, which allowed her to work fewer direct patient hours and more time training other professionals. Angela is a natural leader, the medical director said in a meeting. She can teach nursing techniques and, at the same time, convey the importance of empathy and emotional care. This new role allowed her more time with her daughters and with the extended family she had formed with David, Eleanor, and Catherine. Sundays at Eleanor's house became sacred for everyone. It was when they gathered for lunch, talked about the week, and planned the future. Zachary loved these gatherings, especially because he could play with his aunts, Brianna and Madison. "This family we've built is proof that love doesn't depend on blood ties," Catherine would always remark. "It depends on the choice to truly care for one another." David, reflecting on his transformation, often said that that day at the bank had been simultaneously the worst and the best day of his life. "It was the worst because it showed me who I had become," he explained. "And it was the best because it gave me the chance to start over, to become the person my mother raised me to be." The family's influence extended beyond their personal circle. Brianna, during her medical residency, was known for the patience and affection with which she treated elderly patients. Madison implemented support groups for families at the hospital, based on techniques she had seen her mother use informally for years. "Angela's girls are just like their mother," their co-workers would comment. "They have the same gift for caring for people." Catherine, even though she wasn't in the healthcare field, also got involved in volunteer work, helping needy families access social security benefits and legal guidance. "When you're part of this family," she would explain, "you naturally want to help others too." Even Zachary, still a child, already showed altruistic behaviors. At school, he was known for defending classmates who suffered bullying and for helping those with learning difficulties. "My grandma taught me that we should be kind to everyone," he would say when asked about his attitude. The family's story had become so inspiring that a television producer approached David to make a documentary about personal and professional transformations. "Our story isn't about me," he told the producers. "It's about Angela, about Eleanor, about how one person's kindness can change many lives." The documentary aired in prime time and generated a national outcry. Thousands of people wrote letters sharing their own experiences with prejudice and transformation. "Receiving these letters makes me realize our story isn't unique," Angela commented. "Many people go through similar situations. The difference is having the courage to admit mistakes and the humility to accept help to change." One of the most touching letters came from a young executive from New York City who had recognized herself in David's story. "I saw myself in the mirror through your story," she wrote. "I also became arrogant and prejudiced because of professional pressure. Your example showed me I can be successful without losing my humanity. Thank you for helping me find my way back to who I really am." The documentary's impact was so great that other companies began seeking consultancy to implement similar programs. David and Angela created a structured methodology that could be adapted for different types of businesses. "The principle is always the same," Angela would explain in the trainings. "Treat each person as if they were someone special in the life of someone you love." Eleanor, even in her 80s, actively participated in these trainings, telling her personal story to sensitize the participants. "When you look at a difficult or different customer," she would say, "remember that they might be the most important person in someone's life, like I was to my son, even when he had forgotten that." The methodology they developed was adopted by hundreds of companies across the United States. The result was always the same: improved service, increased customer satisfaction, and the creation of more harmonious work environments. "What we discovered," David would explain in seminars, "is that when you teach your employees to be more human at work, they become better people in all areas of life." This was visible in the bank's own team. Employees who participated in the first trainings became natural leaders, multiplying the concepts of humanized service to new hires. Jessica, the employee who had tried to alert David about Eleanor, was promoted to assistant manager and specialized in serving customers in vulnerable situations. Working with David taught me that true leadership is about serving people, not about exercising power over them, she said in an interview. The program expanded so much that David was invited to give lectures at universities about leadership and corporate social responsibility. My story shows that it's possible to reconcile professional success with human values, he would explain to business students. In fact, one strengthens the other. Angela also began teaching in technical nursing courses, not just about medical procedures, but about the importance of emotional care and respect for the patient. Technique without humanity is incomplete, she would teach. You are not just treating symptoms or illnesses. You are caring for people in their most vulnerable moments. Her classes were always packed, and many former students kept in touch to share how her teachings had made a difference in their careers. Eleanor, who had become a sort of informal ambassador for the humanization program, received a special invitation from the City Hall to participate in campaigns to combat prejudice against the elderly. Age has given me the experience to recognize that people can change, she said in the commercials. If my son could do it, anyone can. The campaigns were so well received that other cities requested Eleanor's participation in similar initiatives. 10 years after the first meeting at the bank, the family celebrated a special date, the 10th anniversary of the Humanized Care Program. When I think of everything that has happened in these 10 years, said David at the celebration party, I am moved, not only by the transformation in the company, but by the lives that were touched, the families that were reunited, the prejudices that were overcome. The party gathered hundreds of people, bank employees, hospital professionals, clients who had benefited from the program, training participants and family members of all involved. This celebration is not about the program, said Angela in her speech. It is proof that when people of goodwill unite for a noble cause, they can create changes that go far beyond what they initially imagined. Eleanor, now 88 years old, but still active and engaged, gave the main toast of the evening. 10 years ago, I was in a hospital bed, thinking my life was coming to an end. Today I am here, surrounded by a wonderful family, and celebrating changes that have improved the lives of thousands of people. This taught me that it is never too late to start over, never too late to forgive, never too late to love. The toast was met with an emotional standing ovation. Many people had tears in their eyes, remembering their own stories of transformation and overcoming. Zachary, now 8 years old, also attended the party. He had prepared a special drawing showing the whole family together, including Angela, her daughters, Eleanor, David, Catherine, and himself. This drawing shows that real family is who we choose to love, he said when presenting his artwork. The drawing was framed and placed on the bank's wall as a symbol of what had motivated all the changes. Brianna, now established as a respected geriatrician, announced at the party that she had decided to specialize further, creating an integrated care center for the elderly, which would combine medical treatment with emotional and social support. I want to create a place where the elderly are treated with the dignity that misses. Eleanor taught me they deserve, she explained. Madison, also well established in her career as a hospital psychologist, revealed that she was developing a psychological support program for families of long-term patients. I saw how important it is to care not only for the patient but for the whole family, she said. I want to expand this care to other institutions. The professional evolution of Angela's daughters showed how the family values had been perpetuated in the new generation. Catherine announced that she was pregnant with her second child, news that was received with joy by the whole family. I hope this baby grows up with the same values as Zachary, she said, in an environment where love and respect for others are the main pillars. Catherine's pregnancy represented not only the growth of the biological family, but the continuation of the legacy of values that had been built over the years. David, reflecting on the decade that had passed, shared his perspectives on the future. My goal now is not just to maintain what we've built, but to expand it even further. I want every company in the United States to have at least one program for compassionate service. He had created a foundation dedicated exclusively to this purpose, with its own resources and partnerships with other organizations. Angela, even with all the changes and recognition, kept her simple essence and focus on what truly mattered. "My greatest satisfaction," she said, "is not the awards or the lectures, but when I meet a former patient on the street who tells me they remember the kindness they received in their most difficult moments." These words perfectly captured the spirit that had motivated the entire transformation, the importance of genuine care for people. The party ended with the presentation of a special video, produced by the bank's team, showing testimonials from people who had been impacted by the program over the 10 years. They were stories of clients who had been well served in critical moments, employees who had changed their way of seeing their work, families who had been reunited through the program's initiatives. Each of these stories represents a victory of humanity over prejudice, of love over fear, of understanding over judgment, said David while commenting on the video. The video ended with a special message from Eleanor, recorded especially for the occasion. "If there is one lesson my long life has taught me, it is that we should never give up on people. Even when someone seems lost, like my son was, there is always a chance for redemption, always an opportunity to start over. It just takes an angel like Angela to show the way." The 10-year celebration marked not just an anniversary, but the recognition that what had begun as a situation of conflict had transformed into a movement for social change. In the months following the party, the program received even more attention from the media and international organizations interested in replicating the experience in other countries. "Our story shows that positive changes can start very simply," Angela explained at an international conference. "A chance encounter, a misunderstanding, an opportunity for forgiveness. All of that can transform into something much bigger when people are willing to grow together." The international attention led to an invitation for the methodology to be presented at human resources congresses in several countries. David and Angela traveled together to some of these events, always accompanied by Eleanor when her health allowed. "Seeing our story being told in other languages, in other cultures, makes me realize that the need for humanization is universal," Eleanor commented after a presentation in Buenos Aires. The success of the international presentations resulted in the translation of the methodology into several languages and the creation of a global network of companies committed to compassionate service. In the United States, the movement continued to grow. Other financial institutions began seeking consultancy, but also companies from other sectors: hospitals, stores, schools, public agencies. "The principle works in any environment where there is human interaction," explained Madison, who had joined the consultancy team as an expert in the psychological aspects of service. Madison's participation in the family project represented the official entry of the third generation into the humanization movement. Brianna, although focused on her medical career, also occasionally contributed with lectures on compassionate service in the healthcare field. "Technical medicine has saved many lives," she would say, "but compassionate medicine saves not only lives, but dignity, hope, and family relationships." Zachary was growing up witnessing all these activities and already showed a genuine interest in the family values. "When I grow up," he said in an interview for the school newspaper, "I want to work helping people be kinder to each other." At 12 years old, Zachary was being educated not only academically, but also in the values of empathy and respect that had become the family's trademark. Eleanor, despite her advanced age, remained an inexhaustible source of wisdom and motivation for everyone. "Old age has given me the privilege of seeing the results of the seeds we planted," she would say. "And I can say that the seeds of love always yield the best harvest." At 90 years old, she still participated in special events and continued to be one of the most respected voices of the movement. The second child of David and Catherine was born, a girl who was named Eleanor in honor of her grandmother. "I hope she grows up with Grandma's wisdom and kindness," Catherine said on the day of the birth. Little Eleanor symbolically represented the continuation of the family legacy, a new generation that would grow up already within the values of love and respect for others. The Humanized Care program completed 15 years with even more impressive results. It had expanded to over 1,000 companies across the United States and was present in 8 Latin American countries. "When I began this journey," said David at the 15-year ceremony, "I never imagined that a mistake of mine would turn into something so big." This taught me that we should not be ashamed of our mistakes, but rather use them as opportunities for growth. Angela, now nationally recognized as an expert in hospital humanization, had received several offers for positions at major healthcare institutions, but always chose to remain close to the community where it all began. "My mission is not to climb the career ladder," she explained. "It is to multiply humanized care, and I can do that from wherever I am, regardless of the position I hold." Her choice to remain true to her origins inspired many professionals facing similar dilemmas between career growth and life purpose. Angela's daughters had become references in their respective fields. Brianna now ran one of the most respected geriatric centers in the country, known for its humanized care and the integration of medical care and family support. Madison had created her own methodology for hospital psychological support that was being adopted in several hospitals across the country. Her approach combined traditional psychology techniques with the values of empathy and holistic care she had learned at home. "Growing up watching my mother work taught me that profession and life's mission can be the same thing," she said in her lectures. Zachary, now a teenager, had developed a school project on combating bullying based on the family principles of respect and inclusion. "My family taught me that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity," he explained to his classmates. "It doesn't matter if the person is different, has difficulties, or comes from a reality different from ours." Zachary's project was so well received that the school decided to implement it permanently, and other educational institutions began seeking information about the methodology. Catherine had specialized in social law and worked voluntarily helping underprivileged families access their basic rights. "Being part of this family taught me that privileges bring responsibilities," she explained, "and my responsibility is to use my knowledge to help those most in need." Little Eleanor, at 5 years old, already displayed the gentle and caring personality traits that characterized the family. "She plays doctor and always takes care of her injured toys with great affection," observed grandmother Eleanor, amused. The family had grown not only in number, but in positive influence on society. Each member contributed uniquely to the legacy of humanization and care for others. Eleanor, the matriarch, turned 95 while still lucid and engaged. Her birthday celebration gathered hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by her story. "Living so long has allowed me to see that small actions can have big consequences," she said in her thank you speech. "What began with a nurse caring for me transformed into a movement that helps thousands of people every day." Her speech was recorded and turned into training material used in humanization programs. David, reflecting on the 20 years that had passed since the first meeting with Angela, decided to write a book telling the whole story. "I want this story to be preserved for future generations," he explained, "so that others can learn from our mistakes and successes." The book, titled "The Angel in the Hospital, A True Story of Transformation," became a bestseller and was adopted as required reading in management and human resources courses at several universities. Angela contributed specific chapters on the importance of empathy in nursing and on how to overcome situations of prejudice and discrimination. "My part in the book isn't about me," she explained. "It's about showing that we all have the capacity to forgive and to turn negative situations into opportunities for growth." The book launch was accompanied by a series of lectures across the country, always with the participation of the entire family. "Our story shows that true transformation is a collective project," Catherine said during the presentations. "It's not one person changing alone. It's an entire network of relationships evolving together." The book's success generated interest for a film adaptation. Several directors approached the family with proposals to turn the story into a movie. "If we make a film," said Eleanor, "it has to be true to the facts, and it has to convey the right message, that love always overcomes prejudice." After much family debate, they accepted a proposal from a director known for films with positive social messages. During filming, the entire family participated as consultants to ensure the essence of the story was preserved. "Seeing our life portrayed on screen is surreal," commented David, "but it's also an opportunity to take our message to even more people." The film was released 2 years later to great acclaim. The national premiere was a charity event, with all proceeds going to hospital humanization programs. "This film isn't about us," said Angela at the premiere. "It's about all the people who have suffered prejudice and about all those who have the courage to change." The film's impact was international. It was selected for several film festivals and won awards for its humanitarian message. The cinematic success led to invitations for the family to participate in television programs and documentaries in various countries. "It's amazing how our story resonates in such different cultures," observed Madison after an interview on French television. "It shows that the need for humanization is universal." 25 years after the first meeting at the bank, the family organized a special celebration. The event brought together representatives from all the companies and institutions that had implemented humanization programs based on their methodology. "A quarter of a century ago," said David at the opening of the event, "I was a lost man, dominated by prejudice and arrogance. Today I can say I have found my true purpose in life, to serve others." Angela, now recognized as one of the pioneers of hospital humanization in the United States, received a special tribute from the National Nurses Association. "My work has always been simple," she said upon receiving the award, "to treat each person as if they were someone special. The recognition is gratifying, but what truly drives me is knowing that our methodology is helping healthcare professionals take better care of their patients." Eleanor, at 100 years old, was invited to light the commemorative candle for the 25th anniversary. "100 years of life have taught me many lessons," she said with a voice still firm. "But the most important was learning that it is never too late to forgive, never too late to start over, and never too late to love." Her speech received a standing ovation from all present. Many had tears in their eyes, seeing the clarity and wisdom of a centenarian who had become a symbol of overcoming and family love. The younger generations of the family were also present at the event. Zachary, now a 20-year-old studying social psychology, presented his research on the impact of humanization programs on reducing social conflicts. "I grew up watching my family work for a more humane world," he said. "Now I want to contribute scientifically to prove that kindness and respect are not just moral values, but effective tools for social transformation." Young Eleanor, 15 years old, surprised everyone by announcing she had created a school project to teach empathy to children. "Grandma Eleanor always says we should plant seeds of kindness," she explained. "I want to plant these seeds in children so they grow up to be better people." Brianna announced she was expanding her geriatric center to other cities, always maintaining the principles of humanized care she had learned from the family. "Every new center we open is an extension of the love we learned at home," she said. "It is our way of multiplying care for more seniors who deserve dignity and respect." Madison revealed she was writing a book on humanized hospital psychology based on her 2 decades of experience in the field. "I want to systematize everything I've learned so other professionals can use this knowledge," she explained. "It is my contribution to perpetuating the family legacy." Catherine announced the creation of an NGO dedicated to bringing humanization programs to underprivileged communities. "Access to dignified treatment cannot be a privilege for those with financial means," she said. "Our NGO will work to democratize humanized care." The 25th anniversary event marked not just a celebration, but the launch of new projects that would carry the family legacy into the future. In the following years, each family member expanded their activities, but always maintained the connection to the original values that had motivated the entire transformation. David, now retired from banking activities, dedicated himself fully to consultancy in corporate humanization. His company had become an international reference in the field. Angela continued working at the hospital, but now as the Director of Humanization, a position created specifically for her by the administration that recognized her importance to the institution. Eleanor, even as a centenarian, remained the spiritual advisor of the family and the movement. Her wisdom was constantly sought to resolve conflicts and guide important decisions. The family's story had become a case study in several universities around the world. Researchers from different fields, management, psychology, sociology, nursing, used their experience as an example of how individual changes can generate social transformations. Our family proves that it is possible to reconcile professional success, personal fulfillment, and social contribution, David would say in his latest lectures. You just have to be willing to put the human being at the center of everything you do. 30 years after the first meeting at the bank, Eleanor passed away peacefully at 103, surrounded by the entire family she had helped build. Her funeral was a celebration of life, bringing together hundreds of people who had been impacted by her story. Representatives from companies, hospitals, universities and NGOs from various countries sent tributes. "Mrs. Eleanor did not die," said Angela in the farewell speech. "She multiplied in every life she touched, in every person who learned from her story, in every act of kindness inspired by her example." Little Helena, now 20 years old and studying medicine like her cousin Brianna, symbolically took on the role of guardian of the family values. "Grandma Eleanor taught me that each generation has the responsibility to leave the world better than they found it," she said. "That is what I intend to do with my life." Zachary, with a degree in social psychology, had begun a doctorate on the impact of humanization programs in reducing urban social conflicts. "My thesis will scientifically prove what my family always knew intuitively," he explained, "that treating people with dignity and respect is not only morally right but socially effective." Zachary's research was being followed by international universities and promised to provide a solid scientific basis for expanding humanization programs in public policy. David, reflecting on the 3 decades of transformation, wrote a second book, The Angel's Legacy: How a Lesson in Humility Changed Generations. "This book is not about the past," he explained. "It's about the future, about how the next generations can use our experience to create a more humane world." End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this moving story and where you are following along from. Did you connect with David's transformation and with Angela's kindness? Leave your comment with sincere words about which moment touched your heart the most. Your opinion is very important to us.